Not tonight, she said, without even looking up. Her eyes stayed glued to her tablet, like I was not in the room at all. That same sentence used to sound different. A few years ago, she would say it softly, like she felt bad. She might kiss my forehead and whisper sorry. Back then it sounded like an excuse, like a temporary thing, like tomorrow might be better. But tonight it was flat, cold, automatic, like she was swiping away a pop-up message she did not care to open. I stared at the ceiling for a moment. Then I slowly turned my head and looked at Mara, my wife. The light from her screen washed her face in pale blue. Her legs were folded under her, relaxed like she had nowhere else to be. Her shoulders were loose. Her eyes moved across the tablet fast, reading whatever mattered more than me. My hand had been resting on her hip a second earlier. A small touch. A gentle try. Nothing pushy. Just me reaching out, hoping she would turn toward me. Instead, she stayed focused on screen. So I pulled my hand back, quietly, the way you pull back from a statue. A statue looks like a person, but it does not respond. It does not move. It does not feel warm. I did not say anything. I used to speak. I used to ask. But I do not anymore. I rolled onto my side and faced the wall. My heart was beating harder than I wanted to admit. My brain tried to protect me. It started giving me excuses. She is tired. She is stressed. It is not about you. She has a lot on her plate. But my chest did not believe those lies. The bitterness in my throat tasted like metal, like a battery on my tongue. The room was warm and dim, but it suddenly felt like a grave. Like we were lying in a place where something had died. And the silence between us felt loud. Not quiet peace. Not comfort. This silence buzzed like electricity. It pressed into my ears. We had not touched, really touched, in weeks. Every night I tried. Not in a demanding way. Not like a man trying to force anything. Just small, normal attempts. A kiss on her shoulder. A soft hand on her waist. A quiet question in the dark, asking if she was still awake. And every night, it ended the same way. Not tonight. Sometimes she said it with a sigh, like I was another task on her list. Sometimes she patted my hand like I was a child asking for something stupid. This time, I did not even answer. I stared at the wall and blinked slowly. My eyes burned a little, and I swallowed that feeling down like I always do. She did not react. Either she did not notice, or she noticed and did not care. Her fingers kept tapping, scrolling, zooming. The screen kept getting her attention like it was a lover she actually wanted. And that was the worst part. She was smiling. Not a big smile, not a showy one, but a small, real smile. The kind you do not fake when you are exhausted. The kind that happens when something makes you happy. That tiny smile stabbed deeper than any argument could. Because can you imagine it? You are in your own bed. You reach for the woman you married. The woman you built a life with. The woman you shared plans with. And she lights up for a screen more than she ever lights up for your touch. I lay there in the dark, staring at nothing. And for the first time, I did not feel crushed. I felt clear. Let me explain. My name is Derek. I am 37. I've been married to Mara for 9 years. She is a tech consultant. She treats numbers and spreadsheets like they are precious. People not so much. I work in logistics. It is not glamorous. It is not exciting. But it pays the bills and keeps the house running. Our home is a 3-bedroom colonial. Solid house. Nice structure. Good neighborhood. And too much silence. We have the little signs of a perfect couple. Matching bathroom stuff. Coordinated towels. The kind of home that looks like stability when someone visits for dinner. On paper, we are the couple people think has it figured out. Stable. Adult. Safe. A little boring, but in a good way. Except none of it means anything now. Because for the last 6 months, I have been trying to keep something alive that has been dying for a long time. And that sentence, not tonight, was not just rejection anymore. It felt like a power move. Like she was pushing me into a corner and waiting for me to beg. Like she wanted me to chase her and prove I still wanted her, even if she kept refusing. And something inside me snapped into a different shape. Not anger. Not screaming rage. Decision. Tomorrow, I will not argue. I will not beg. I will not demand to talk. I will not throw a fit. I will do something else. I will take everything she has been feeding me, all the silence, all the distance, all the small power plays, and I will turn it into a plan. Cold, quiet, controlled. Because if she thinks she is in charge of how this falls apart, she has not met the version of me that is done pretending. So buckle in. That night was not the explosion. It was the first crack. The next morning, I heard her in the kitchen. She was humming. Mara always hums when she feels good. When she is calm. When she is pleased with herself. Like nothing happened. Like the last 12 hours were not another rejection carved into the night. I stood in the hallway for a second, leaning my back against the wall, arms folded, listening to the tune. It sounded cheerful, light, familiar in the way happy people sound. It made my stomach turn. I did not recognize who she was happy for anymore, but I knew it was not me. I walked into the kitchen without speaking. She was pouring coffee. She held her favorite striped mug. Her hair was tied up. She wore that oatmeal-colored sweater she always called her thinking armor, like it helped her focus and block the world out. She glanced up, bright and casual, like I had just walked in from a run, not from a bed that had become a lonely battlefield. "Oh, morning," she said. Then she launched into news like she was hosting a morning show. Guess who finally got the promotion? Jasmine. She really deserved it. She works like a beast. She paused like she expected my face to light up, like she expected me to smile and react and clap for a friend. I did not. Nice, I said. My voice came out low and short. I did not try to soften it. For once, I wanted her to feel the cold air she had been blowing into me for months. Her smile shifted, just a tiny crack. Then she did what she always does when a moment goes wrong. She tried to rescue it with more words. She started stirring her coffee and talking about how long Jasmine had been with the company. But I cut her off. I have work, I said. I rinsed my glass and set it down with a little more force than needed. Not a slam, but enough to make sound. Then I walked to my office and closed the door. The click of the latch sounded like a lock. Inside, my laptop started up. The screen lit. Emails piled up. Messages pinged. None of it mattered. I sat at my desk and stared forward, not at the screen, but through it, past it, into the parts of my mind where her voice used to sound warmer, slower, human. I remembered old mornings. Back then, she would slide next to me on the couch in pajama shorts. Her hair messy. Her head would rest on my shoulder while she scrolled houses online, just for fun. Look at this one in Vermont, she would say, excited. We could grow old here. I believed her. Now I realized she could say that about Vermont with anyone. From the kitchen, I heard her laugh. Not with me. Never with me anymore. She was on the phone, probably with Jasmine, probably gossiping about work, celebrating, planning coffee, planning life. Her laugh used to be my favorite sound. It used to feel like sunlight. Now it felt distant, like something sealed inside glass. Pretty, but untouchable. I stared at my inbox and felt something in me harden. This house looked perfect, but it felt staged. Like a set built to trap a man into thinking he had a marriage. The fridge magnets from our trips. The gallery wall of smiling photos. The blankets folded neatly on the couch. Everything arranged. And the energy behind it felt fake. Plastic. That morning, I made a quiet choice. Not revenge. Not an outburst. Just this. I'm done reacting. She wanted a version of me that did not need her. Fine. I will become a man she cannot read. A man she cannot predict. A man she cannot control. Later that day, I went to the gym. The gym in the middle of the afternoon has a strange calm. The loud crowds are gone. It is mostly quiet. Just weight plates clinking, shoes squeaking, fans humming overhead. I liked it because nobody expected anything from me there. I did not plan to talk to anyone. I wanted to lift heavy things and feel my body, do something real. Something simple. I sat down at the bench press. Then I heard a voice behind me. Thought you disappeared, the voice said, and a hand clapped my shoulder. Miles. He was tall, relaxed, and always looked like he had never taken life too seriously. He wore the same worn Ohio State hoodie, like it was his uniform. We had not hung out much since before the pandemic, but we had known each other since high school. The kind of friend who can vanish for years and still talk to you like no time passed. Still here, I said, and grabbed the bar. He nodded dramatically. Good, because you have that look, man. Like you were about to fall apart. Or you were severely constipated. I almost smiled. One corner of my mouth twitched. That was Miles. He always hit the moment right. After my set, we moved to the rowers. A few rounds in, he tossed me a towel and leaned back. You all right, man? He asked. Men ask that question all the time and usually do not really want the answer. But the way he said it this time was different. Quiet. Solid. Like he already knew something was wrong. I stared at the floor mats. She will not touch me, I said. My voice was low. He did not laugh. He did not flinch. He did not rush me. He just waited. It has been months, I continued. At first I thought it was stress. Work. Life. Whatever. But now I do not even feel like her husband. Miles breathed out slowly and rubbed the back of his neck. That is rough, man. I nodded. Every night I reach for her, and every night I get shut down. Like she's doing me a favor by letting me share the bed. Damn, he said. Then he leaned forward, fingers laced, voice more serious. Listen, I am not saying this is the answer, but maybe you test her loyalty. I looked at him. Test her loyalty. He lifted a shoulder. Nothing wild. Just poke the bubble. See what pops. That phrase stayed in the air between us. Test her loyalty. It did not sound crazy. It sounded like a name for something I'd already been circling in my head for weeks, like a thought that kept walking around the edge of my mind, waiting for a door to open. That night, I did not say a word to Mara. I watched her fall asleep with her tablet still resting on her chest. Her mouth slightly open, her breathing slow, and I felt nothing. No sadness. No jealousy. Just focus. When I was sure she was asleep, I reached for her phone on the nightstand. My hands were steady. Cold steady. I'm not going to describe any technical details, but I will tell you what I did in plain words. I used a tool that let me see what she was doing on her phone without her knowing. A mirror of her messages and location. Not because I felt proud. Not because it was noble. Because I was done living in the dark. I set it up as quietly as I could, then put her phone back. I lay down and stared at the ceiling. The numbness was not sadness. It was precision. I was not acting like a husband anymore. I was acting like someone who had to know the truth. The next day, the tool finally started showing me her messages. I was sitting in my car outside a grocery store, engine off. The blue glow of the screen lit my lap. Notifications had been coming all day, but I did not open the thread right away. Part of me was afraid. Part of me already knew. At first, the messages looked normal. A group chat with coworkers. A recipe from her sister. A discount code for workout clothes. Nothing. Then I saw a name that stopped my body cold. Corey. No last name. No profile picture. Just Corey. My chest went still. The first message from him said he missed their lunch escape. He wrote like this was normal. Like this was routine. Mara replied like it was routine too. She told him he was bad for her schedule, but good for her stress. I scrolled, reading with a strange calm, like I was reviewing a story that belonged to someone else. There were flirty messages, inside jokes, and in the lines that made the air in my car feel thick. Hotel plans, room numbers, specific nights, specific places, words you do not use with a coworker, words you do not use with a friend. My hands did not shake. I did not yell. I did not punch the steering wheel. I just kept reading, and the fog that had been sitting on my chest for months lifted like someone opened a window. She was cheating, not just emotional, not accidental, not a one-time mistake. It was planned, repeated, comfortable. This was a second life she built with care, like a hidden apartment inside her phone. I leaned my head back against the seat and stared up at the car ceiling. And I smiled, not because it did not hurt. It did hurt, deep, in a place that felt older than words. But I smiled because finally I had something real. Not guesses, not cold nights, not vague excuses. Proof. And proof gave me purpose. I sat there for 20 minutes while more messages came in. Corey sent a selfie from a hotel bar. Mara replied with a heart and said she was finishing a call. She was not even trying to hide it well. And maybe that was what cut the deepest. She did not think I would ever find out. She did not think I mattered enough to be a threat. She saw me as background furniture, something that stays in place, something that will not move unless pushed. But I was not going to confront her. Not yet. That is what most men do. They explode. They accuse. They demand answers. They cry. They beg. And they give the other person time to lie, twist, deny, and rewrite history. I have always been better at plans than explosions. So I set the phone down, took a slow breath, and watched the streetlight reflections slide across my windshield like lines being drawn on a blueprint. She thought she had one. But this was not the end. This was the start. Friday night, 6:18 p.m. Mara stood in front of the bedroom mirror and adjusted a silver earring. Nothing loud, nothing dramatic, just enough effort to send a message that she was going somewhere that mattered. She smoothed her blouse and smiled at her own reflection. It was the same clean, practiced smile she used at work events, the kind that said she had everything handled. Then came the perfume. Sharp, floral, not the one she usually wore around me. I stood in the hallway with a glass of wine, watching quietly. I did not announce myself. I did not ask questions. I just waited. She had not noticed me at first, not really. Her mind was already somewhere else. You look nice, I said because it felt like the thing a husband is supposed to say. She turned fast, almost startled, like she forgot I existed in the house until that moment. Then she gave me a tight smile. Thanks, she said. Work dinner thing. Do not wait up. Work dinner. With the same co-workers she always complained about. The same people she said were too corporate, too fake, too full of drama. But tonight, suddenly, they were worth her Friday night. I did not argue. I did not raise an eyebrow. I did not push. I simply lifted my glass slightly. Have fun, I said. She paused for a second. A flicker passed behind her eyes. Hesitation, guilt, or maybe just a quick mental check to make sure her story sounded normal. Then she grabbed her purse and walked out the front door, heels clicking down the steps like punctuation at the end of a sentence. I waited exactly 10 minutes. Then I opened the monitoring tool. Her location appeared at a restaurant downtown, just long enough to anchor the lie. A quick stop. A public check-in. Then, at 7:05, the dot moved. East. Toward the waterfront. Toward the hotel that showed up again and again in the messages. I did not follow her. I did not call her. I did not cry. I poured another glass of wine and walked through the house slowly, seeing everything with new eyes. The living room looked the same. Neutral colors. Carefully placed pillows. Framed quotes about gratitude and togetherness. A home designed to look warm, safe, stable. But now it all felt staged. Like a set. Like a place built to convince a man he was loved as long as he stayed quiet and played his part. Tonight, the house felt sharper. Less like a home, more like a stage. And for the first time, I felt like I was holding the script. I sat at the dining table, opened my laptop, and started a spreadsheet. I titled it, Details, Names, Dates, Times, Room Numbers, Restaurant Stops, Hotel Stays. I wrote everything down, not for a dramatic confrontation, for control. Because evidence is not just proof. Evidence is leverage. Evidence is power. At 9:43 p.m., I checked her location again, still at the hotel. And suddenly betrayal did not feel like some dark story in my head. It was no longer a fear or a guess. It had coordinates. It had a timestamp. It had a room number. I leaned back in my chair and took a slow breath. Strangely, I did not feel shattered. I felt awake. This was not heartbreak anymore. This was strategy. She thought she still had the upper hand. She thought I was still the man who said have fun and swallowed his feelings. But all she had done was hand me clarity. And clarity is dangerous when it is quiet. Saturday morning came like nothing happened. Sunlight poured into the kitchen. Warm, casual, normal. Mara stood at the counter humming again, like a woman who ran through a storm and never got wet. Like she had done nothing wrong. She was making pancakes, something she only did when she wanted to be seen a certain way. Loving, present, sweet. I leaned against the doorway with my arms crossed. She glanced over her shoulder and smiled like everything was fine. Do you want strawberries or blueberries? She asked. Strawberries, I said, and matched her smile. She laughed softly. I know. I was just checking. It was a little dance. and I played along. I set the table while she plated the food. I even added whipped cream the way I used to when we were first married. We ate in small bites, covered in syrupy small talk. A show we might watch. A weekend errand. Maybe trying that new Thai place next week. She looked relaxed, content, like she truly believed she was winning. Like she believed the old Derek had returned. Quiet, forgiving, dull. But she did not see the difference in my eyes because she was not looking for it. I was studying her now. The angle of her smile. The timing of her answers. The tiny delays. The way her eyes drifted away when she talked about Friday night. A week ago, I would have given anything for a breakfast like this. Now it felt like a costume party. And I had the sharpest mask in the room. That afternoon, I bought roses. 12 long stems, deep red. I handed them to her with a card that said only, "You looked beautiful this morning." Her eyes widened. She blushed like she had won some secret bet. "You are really trying?" she said, running her fingers over the petals. I smiled. Of course I am. And I was. But not the way she thought. I was trying to see how easily she would step back into the illusion. We spent the day like a couple in a movie montage. Grocery shopping. Laughing over spilled milk. Sharing a bottle of wine while cooking dinner. She curled up against me on the couch that night, scrolling on her phone, resting her head on my shoulder like the distance between us never existed. But behind my calm face, my mind kept ticking. She was not suspicious. And that meant she believed she was smarter than me. She thought kindness meant closure. She thought pancakes and roses could reset the marriage she had already burned. What she did not understand was simple. I stopped hoping for repair the moment I saw Corey's name. This was not reconciliation. This was reconnaissance. She thought I was healing, but really I was sharpening. 2 weeks later, we went to a friend's house for game night. Snacks on a coffee table. Wine glasses. Laughing couples who still believed in each other. Mara planned the night. It was her circle, her comfort zone. To everyone else, we looked fine. Maybe even happy. I smiled at the right moments. Passed the chips. Played my part like an actor who had memorized every line. Mara glowed in that curated way she had perfected. Not raw joy. Not honest joy. Performance joy. She leaned into me when she laughed. She touched my arm when she thought no one was watching. I felt her hand. I just did not feel anything inside. The group played a silly card game, meant to reveal how well couples knew each other. Who leaves dishes in the sink? Who takes longer to get ready? Each question triggered playful teasing. But Mara and I stayed polished. Controlled. Predictable. Then someone asked, who is more jealous? That was the moment I chose to press. I smiled gently, the kind of smile that makes people relax. If she ever left me, I said lightly, I would probably send flowers to the new guy for putting up with her. Laughter rolled through the room. Everyone laughed. Except Mara. Her smile froze halfway, then thinned. Her fingers tightened slightly around her wine glass. She did not look at me, but I could feel the panic behind her eyes. Because to her, that was not a joke. It was a mirror, and for the first time in weeks, she did not like her own reflection. The game kept going. The laughter continued, but something shifted in her. Every laugh after that sounded sharper. Every glance was quicker. The air between us thinned. On the drive home, we rode in silence. No music, no casual talk. Her hand stayed folded in her lap. I parked in the garage and sat still for a moment. I stared straight ahead. I waited. Eventually, she broke first. Why did you say that? She asked. Her voice was tight, trying to sound calm. I turned my head slowly. Say what? The flowers thing, she said. That was not a joke, Derek. I gave a small laugh, calm on purpose. Everyone laughed. Her voice dropped lower. I did not. Silence spread between us again, heavy with everything she wanted to say, but could not. Why are you acting weird lately? She asked. It was more accusation than question. I looked at her. Not angry. Not cruel. Just clear. I'm just finally seeing things clearly. That line did not explode. It sank. Quiet. Slow. Like a stone dropping into deep water. She did not respond. She nodded faintly and stepped out of the car without slamming the door. But her footsteps through the house sounded different. Like a warning. The game had changed, and she was starting to feel it. After that night, changes came in small ways. Not dramatic. Not sudden. Like a crack in glass that spreads slowly until you cannot stop it. The first thing I noticed was this. Mara stopped humming. No morning tunes in the kitchen. No soft singing while she packed her work bag. Only silence. Heavy. Uncertain. She watched me more closely now. I would catch her staring while I buttered toast or tied my shoes. Not a loving stare. A calculating one. Like she was trying to figure out who I had become. But she still did not ask directly. Instead, she tried to regain control the way she always did. With small comments. With subtle pressure. You're on your phone a lot lately, she said one night. I did not look up. So are you, I replied. It stopped her. She sat beside me, fingers curled around a pillow like she needed something to hold. Her body faced the TV, but her attention stayed locked on me. Is there someone? She asked. Careful tone. Careful words. I let the question hang. Then I looked at her and smiled softly. Why would you ask that? She hesitated. You are different. I nodded once. So are you. Her throat moved like she wanted to speak, but nothing came out. She stared at me like she was trying to recognize a stranger standing in a familiar room. And I let her sit in that discomfort. The next day, I told her I had a business trip. Out of town. 3 nights, I said. I will be working remotely. Probably will not have time to check in much. Her eyes blinked fast. Where? Just upstate, I said. No extra details. No kindness. No reassurance. She did not push, but the panic in her face was obvious. She tried to cover it with a joke. Finally, you get the bed to yourself, she said with a forced laugh. But the laugh did not land. Her hands were too still, because deep down, she felt it. This was not about work. Something was sliding out of her control. Friday came. I left with a suitcase. She kissed my cheek like she was acting in a scene she did not fully believe. Text when you get there, she said. I nodded, and I did not. I checked into a small hotel 30 minutes away. Minimal. Quiet. Clean. I unpacked slowly like I might stay longer. Hung my shirts in the closet. Ordered room service. Watched city lights through the window, and I stayed silent. Not that night. Not the next day. She called twice. I let it ring. The silence was not punishment. It was a mirror, and I knew she would eventually look into it. By the second night, she left a voicemail. Just checking in. Hope everything is okay. Call me when you can. Her voice cracked a little at the end. I played it twice. Not because I felt sympathy, because I wanted to hear the shift. The fear she tried to hide. The same fear I used to swallow alone in the dark. Now, it was hers to carry. Sunday evening, I returned home. The house was spotless. Too spotless. The kind of clean that screams panic. Candles lit in multiple rooms. A roast warming in the oven. A playlist playing softly, acoustic and sad, like she was staging a memory we never actually had. I stepped inside with my suitcase and keys. It felt like walking into an Airbnb. Mara was already waiting in the hallway. Her smile appeared a second too late. You were back early, she said. Beat traffic, I replied. She reached for my suitcase. Let me get that. That was so unlike her that it almost made me pause. I kept my voice calm. I have got it. I walked past her without looking. She followed me into the kitchen. The smell of rosemary and thyme filled the air. One of my favorite dinners. She stirred the pot with a forced smoothness, like a contestant on a cooking show trying not to panic. How was the trip, she asked. Productive, I said. You did not call. I was busy. She nodded, but the silence after was not agreement. It was containment. She was holding back questions, burying them under polite smiles, unsure which version of me would answer. We ate dinner like diplomats at a peace summit. Polite. Composed. Careful. She asked about the hotel. I described the view. She asked if I met clients. I said most of it was digital. Smile. Smile. A meal prepared not from love, but from desperation. A peace offering from someone who had just realized the war started months ago, and she had already lost ground. After dinner, I took a long shower. Hot water pounded my back while I leaned against the tile with my eyes closed. I listened to nothing but water and my own breathing. I did not feel satisfaction. Not yet, but I felt distance. And for the first time, distance did not scare me. When I returned to the bedroom, she was under the covers, phone in her hand, pretending to scroll. I climbed into bed. Not close. Not far. Just there. The light from her screen made her look older. Tired. Her fingers hovered like she did not know who to text or what she could even say. Finally, she turned the phone off. I missed you, she whispered. I stayed still. Did you, she asked, voice fragile. Yes, she added quickly, like she was trying to convince herself. She waited for me to respond. I did not, because I did not know if I missed her, or if I missed the version of me who believed she was my home. The next morning, I woke early. The bed beside me was warm but empty. I followed the smell of coffee to the kitchen. Mara stood there in a robe, 2 mugs on the counter like an offering. Morning, she said. Her voice was thin, hopeful. I nodded and took the mug. She hesitated, gathering courage. You seemed off last night, she said. I sipped slowly. I'm tired. That is not all, she said quietly. You're distant. Different. She looked like she was bracing herself. We need to talk, she said. I stayed silent. Her voice dropped lower. Are you seeing someone? The question hung there. For a second, I considered telling her everything. Corey, the hotel messages, the location logs, the nights she left me starving in our bed while she fed someone else. But I did not, because she was not ready to hear it, and I was not ready to give her the chance to deny it. So I smiled, just enough to rattle her. No, I said calmly, but thank you for asking. Her eyes dropped. Her breath caught. I left the kitchen, not angry but purposeful. Let her sit in the silence she once served me every night. Let her feel how loud it can get. Tuesday evening, she came home to a different kind of quiet. Not awkward quiet. Not tense quiet. This was clean. Deliberate. Like the house itself was holding its breath. Lights low. Air still. On the kitchen table sat a single manila envelope. No card. No sweet note. Just the weight of it. I was gone. No suitcase by the door. No keys in a bowl. No sign of me anywhere. Mara stepped toward the table slowly, like someone approaching a coffin. She opened the envelope with careful fingers. Inside were divorce papers. Neatly organized. Signed everywhere I needed to sign. My name in black ink, steady and precise. Her name blank beside it, waiting. She stared at the pages as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less final. Her lips parted like she wanted to speak, but no one was there to listen. The hallway behind her stretched empty. She called my name once, then again, louder. Her voice bounced off the walls. The house did not answer. She walked through every room. Our bedroom. My office. The patio. No suitcase. No note. Only absence. When she returned to the kitchen, her hands were shaking. She called my phone. Straight to voicemail. Again. Then she texted. Where are you? Can we talk? I did not reply. For the first time in all her carefully managed lies, Mara had no script, no cover story, no smug confidence, only the void I left behind. That night, I checked into a short-term rental on the edge of town. Clean, sparse, temporary, but it felt more like home than the place I left. I did not need to look at my phone to know what she was doing. She was spiraling, unraveling. She expected a loud ending, a fight, accusations, me begging for answers, so she could cry, deny, twist, and rebuild the story. Instead, I gave her nothing, not even my shadow. This ending was not loud. It was surgical. Finality does not need noise. The next morning, she texted again. Please, just talk once. I did not answer, not because I had nothing to say. I had too much, but she did not deserve my words anymore. She used my silence as cover. Now she was choking on her own. The courthouse lobby was bright and cold. Glass walls, marble floors, everything echoed. Every step sounded louder than it should, like the building itself wanted to remind you that decisions have weight. Mara sat alone on a bench near the elevators. She held a slim black folder against her chest like it was a shield. Her hair was done perfectly. Her blazer was pressed. Her lipstick was neat, soft pink, the kind she wore when she wanted to look calm and untouched. But her hands betrayed her. They were shaking, not wildly, not enough for strangers to notice, just enough that she kept gripping the folder tighter, like she needed something solid to hold on to. I walked in wearing a charcoal suit. Tailored, clean, sharp. I did not wear it for style. I wore it like armor. This was not the Derek she remembered. The Derek she used to read easily. The Derek she could control with a sigh, a smile, a no, and silence. She stood up quickly when she saw me. Hope flickered in her eyes, like she believed I would pull her aside, whisper that this was a misunderstanding, tell her we could still fix it if she just said the right thing. But I did not slow down. I nodded once. Mara. That was all. She opened her mouth to speak, but I was already walking past her toward the courtroom door. She followed behind me, slower this time. Not confident, not graceful. Like her heels suddenly felt heavier than her pride. Inside, everything moved fast. My attorney spoke with the calm speed of someone who had done this many times. Irreconcilable differences. No children. Division of assets, based on the prenup. That prenup had been her idea. She insisted on it early in our marriage, smiling as she said, "You never know." Back then, I thought it was practical. Now it felt like a joke she told before anyone knew the ending. The judge listened, expression neutral. Mara sat stiff beside her attorney, eyes forward, jaw tight, trying to look like she was still in control. Then came the moment I had prepared for. My attorney stood and spoke clearly. "Your Honor, my client would like to submit a binder of communications relevant to the grounds for emotional detachment and the breakdown of the marriage." The clerk walked over and took the binder from my briefcase. It was thick, black, heavy, not just paper, but months of truth stacked into a shape you could hold. Inside were screenshots, hotel confirmations, chat transcripts, location logs, timestamps, room numbers, weekday meetups disguised as work dinners, jokes and pet names and plans written in plain words. Everything organized, everything labeled, everything clean. The judge flipped through a few pages, slowly at first, then more carefully. His face stayed controlled, but his eyes narrowed slightly, like he was reading something he did not enjoy reading. Mara did not speak. Her breathing changed. Shorter, shallower. Her throat moved as if she wanted to swallow the panic back down. My attorney continued, calm and steady. "We are not seeking punitive damages. This is not about vengeance. My client simply wants the court to understand that his emotional withdrawal and decision to dissolve the marriage were not arbitrary." I did not look at Mara. Not because I was afraid to see her reaction. Because I already knew. I knew what it looked like when the world you built on lies starts collapsing. Is the same face people wear when they realize the door they kept closing is now locked from the other side. The hearing ended quickly. The judge spoke with the kind of final tone that does not leave room for argument. Divorce granted. Finalization within 30 days. Just like that, 9 years turned into paperwork and a deadline. I stood up, shook my attorney's hand, and walked out. Mara followed me again, but slower. Like her body did not know where to put itself now. Outside, the sun was harsh, bright on the courthouse steps. The air felt sharp, like winter, even if it was not. Mara sat down on the top step, folder still pressed against her ribs like it could push time backward. I paused near the edge of the stairs. She looked up at me. Her eyes were wet, but she fought the tears like tears were another weakness she refused to show in public. "I do not understand," she whispered. "You did not even fight. You did not yell. You just left." I studied her. Not with rage. Not with love. Just understanding. "You do not have to yell to leave someone," I said. Her mouth trembled. She stared at me like she was trying to find the old Derek inside this stranger wearing a suit. Then her voice cracked. "You turn me down every night." The words came out like she did not expect them to be real. Like she finally heard what she had been doing, but for the first time, she heard it from the outside. Like her own behavior echoed back at her in a tone she did not recognize. I did not reply. There was nothing left to explain. Any explanation would give her a place to argue. Any emotion would give her a handle to grab. So I did what I'd learned to do. I stayed still. I walked down the steps. Behind me, I could hear her voice again, softer now, almost swallowed by the wind. Derek. But it carried no power anymore. It sounded like a person calling out from a room they already left. At the bottom of the steps, I paused. Not to look back at her. To look ahead. Not at a finish line. At a beginning. And yes, the ache was still there. It would be dishonest to pretend it vanished. It sat deep in my chest like a bruise you only notice when you breathe too hard. But it was not bitterness anymore. It was clarity. And clarity does something strange. It hurts, but also cleans. It strips away the hope that keeps you trapped. It removes the confusion that keeps you negotiating with your own dignity. I walked my car. The world kept moving around me like nothing happened. People walked by with coffee cups and phone calls and normal lives. Cars passed. Birds lifted off from a tree across the street. And I sat in the driver's seat for a moment without starting the engine. I let the quiet settle. Not the kind of quiet she used against me. A different kind. A quiet I chose. I thought back to that first night, the tablet glow, the dismissive voice, the cold words. Not tonight. I remembered how I used to lie there, convincing myself it was nothing. How I swallowed the hurt and tried again the next day, thinking love meant patience. But patience without respect is not love. It is survival. And survival is exhausting. I used to think leaving required fire. A fight. A dramatic scene. A final shout. But I learned something. Finality does not need noise. Sometimes the strongest decision is the one you make without asking permission. Sometimes the cleanest ending is the one that does not give the other person a chance to rewrite the story. I drove away. In the days that followed, her messages came in waves. Long ones. Short ones. Angry ones. Soft ones. Some sounded like apologies. Some sounded like blame. Some sounded like panic. But they all had one thing in common. They were coming from someone who finally understood that silence is not empty. Silence is a consequence. She tried to bait me into a conversation. She tried to pull me into an argument. Because if we argued, it meant we were still connected. If we fought, it meant she still mattered enough to make me react. But I did not. I kept everything clean. I kept everything quiet. I signed what needed signing. I moved what needed moving. I separated accounts. I changed locks when the court allowed it. I did not do it with anger. I did it with calm. And that calm was new. It surprised even me. People think revenge is shouting. People think revenge is public humiliation. People think revenge is burning everything down. But sometimes revenge is simply refusing to be the same person who accepted disrespect. Sometimes revenge is rebuilding your life so quietly that the person who broke you does not even get the satisfaction of seeing you bleed. Weeks later, I stood in a small empty apartment. Nothing fancy. No matching towels. No curated pillows with cute words stitched on them. Just a clean room, a couch, a table, and quiet. Real quiet. The kind that does not buzz with tension. The kind that feels like air after you leave a sealed room. I sat on the floor with a paper plate and takeout. It was not a perfect meal, but it was mine. No performance. No pretending. No walking on eggshells. No reaching for someone who flinched away like my touch was an inconvenience. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Not because I was happy. Because I was free. In the morning, sunlight came through the window. I made coffee. I drank it slowly. And I realized something I never expected. I did not miss her. Not the real her. I missed the story I had built around her. The version of her from the early years. The woman who whispered about Vermont and growing old together. The woman who leaned on my shoulder and laughed like I was home. But that woman was not coming back. Maybe she never existed the way I believed. Maybe she existed only when it was convenient. Either way, I could not live in a marriage that survived on memories. That is not a marriage. That is a museum. And I'd finally walked out of it. When people ask me what happened, I do not tell them everything. I do not list details. I do not recite room numbers. I do not explain the messages. I keep it simple. We ended, I say. It was time. Because the truth is, the most important part was never Corey. It was never the hotel. It was never the cheating alone. The most important part was this. I learned what silence can do. I learned how it can erase a person slowly. How it can make you question yourself. How it can make you beg for scraps like affection is a reward you have to earn. And then I learned something else. Silence can also save you. When it is your choice, not your prison. When you use it to step back, to think, to plan, to protect yourself. When you stop explaining your pain to someone who benefits from not understanding it. In the end, her silence taught me how powerful mine could be. And that power did not come from cruelty. It came from clarity. It came from finally deciding that being wanted is not something you should have to negotiate for. It should be freely given. And when it is not, you do not have to beg. You can leave. Quietly. Completely. And for the first time in a long time, you can breathe. If you have ever been in a bed that felt lonely next to someone who used to feel like home, hear me clearly. You're not weak for wanting love. You're not needy for wanting touch. You are human. But love without respect will drain you until you do not recognize yourself. And silence used as a weapon will slowly train you to accept less and less. My story did not end with screaming. It ended with a decision. I stopped begging for someone to choose me. I chose myself. So if you're watching this and you are still making excuses for someone who keeps shutting you down, ask yourself one question. How long will you keep starving just because you are afraid to walk away from the table? Because the moment you stop reacting, the moment you stop chasing, the moment you stop asking for basic care, you will feel it. Clarity. And clarity is the beginning of freedom. Thanks for listening. If this story hit you, share it with someone who needs it. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe, because sometimes the quiet ending is the one that changes everything.